captive. You get more latitude offshore on doing some of these things, but there are some domiciles onshore that also allow you to do this. Here's the group captive design. As you'll notice that it has 7 companies. I'm taking that right out of a revenue ruling that we'll get to later. It's 7 independent companies. Let's say this is 7 trucking companies. They group together and form their own captive. They all buy premiums. They all pay premiums into the captive and are insured. And let's say they're all 1/7 of the risks that are assumed by the captive. This is a group captive design. A lot of times when people talk about, I've looked at captives before, they're no good, they're not of interest to me. They're usually talking about them looking at a group captive design for perhaps replacing their workers' comp or taking on a part of their workers' comp, and they felt that the costs were too high relative to what they could get on the guaranteed cost market in workers' comp. All right, here's an agency captive design. A lot of times you'll have an agent that might have a big book of business, and it might be a very profitable line of business, and now the agent wants to share in part of that profit that he's making for the commercial carrier, and so he'll make an arrangement with the commercial carrier to take a layer of the risk in his own agency captive. Sometimes it might be even a program that the agent is trying to get the carrier to promote, and so the carrier wants the agency also to put up some capital and also share in part of the risk. This is an agency captive. All right, the next slide here is a protected sale design captive. This also applies to a SBU. Now, this is a strange animal, and I think it got started in the Channel Islands in Europe. For one sense, this is treated as one company, but in another sense, each of these cells are separate little compartments whose assets are not liable for any of the liabilities of any of the other cells or compartments or for the core, and vice versa. Somebody came up with the idea that, well, hey, I got a great idea. We can each own our own cell. It's really just one company, so we won't really have to share any risks, and that way we don't have to have real risk distribution, but we can use by using the protected cell captive. The IRS eventually got around to ruling on these, at least on a prospective basis, and saying that each particular cell had to be treated as an insurance company and meet all the criteria of an insurance company on its own, have its own tax ID number, and file its own tax return. These are still helpful in some cases in reducing costs, particularly in the lower premium amount captives. There hasn't been a lot of, in fact, I don't think there's been any court case where the structure has been challenged and successfully defended. And the same is true of the Series LLC, which uses the SBUs. There has not been any court cases, so you do have some uncertainty there, although there are more and more domiciles have enacted legislation, so that risk seems to be decreasing over time. All right, Scott, want to go to the next poll question?
That poll is up right now. Fred, just quick comment. I think we might need to go back to presentation mode on your slides. They weren't showing.